Confluence provides a simple way to create tables on your pages and blog posts, but these native tables have a pretty plain appearance. You can create a table using the HTML macro to gain more ability to customize its appearance, but there's some downsides to that. The users maintaining the table may not know HTML. Your Confluence administrator may not make the HTML macro available for use in Confluence, since it poses a security risk. And editing an HTML table is much more difficult than editing a native table, especially if it has more than a few columns and rows. The Table Plus macro of the Bob Swift Advanced Tables for Confluence add-on addresses all of these issues, allowing you to transform native Confluence tables into dazzling masterpieces and without needing to use HTML. Let's take a look. This table contains a date column and two numeric columns that contain units sold and revenue. It's pretty plain, so let's add a Table Plus macro to dress it up. Now let's select the table and copy and paste it into the macro container. To have the rows automatically numbered, select this checkbox. To sum up the units and revenues columns, which are numeric, select the next parameter as well. Notice that although a total row was added, it's empty. The totaling can't happen until we define the data type of each table column. This parameter defines those column types. Enter a string which provides a type for each column, with each separated by a comma. The first column, project, is a string, which is S. The second and third column, team and status, are type E, which represent complex HTML elements. The fourth, release date, is a date, which is D. And the fifth column, version, is a dot-separated number, which is dot. This means it will be sorted numerically according to each part of its dot notation, but it won't get totaled. So far, we'd have this. The last two are numeric columns that we want to total, so we'll add some expressions to indicate that, along with the display formatting we want. For the units column, we'll use an expression that indicates to always show at least a 0, and to use a thousands separator if needed. For the revenue column, we'll use a very similar expression, just adding a $sign before the first 0, so that it will be displayed in the total column. Now to pretty it up a bit more, we'll define some CSS for the rows. This parameter takes one set of CSS styles for each row, with each set separated by a comma. In this example, we'll specify 3 sets. The first set applies to the header row, the second set applies to the first data row, the odd rows, and the third set applies to the second data row, the even rows. The full string then looks like this. Notice the larger font in the header row and the alternating colors for the data rows. We'll use this parameter to style the column so that the background color of the units and revenue columns have different colors, a bold font, and are right aligned so they stand out. This parameter takes one set of CSS styles for each column, with each column separated by a comma. In this example, we only need 2 sets, but we have to specify a comma placeholder for each column we're not styling. The full string looks like this. Notice the background colors, alignment, and bold fonts of the last 2 columns. This table is pretty plain as well. Let's make it really stand out by giving a background color to the whole table, a different background color to the header row, and total up each of its numeric columns. By default, tables in a Table Plus macro have a highlight that appears when you mouse over a row. We don't want this, so we will untick this checkbox. Now we'll turn on the ability to have totaling of numeric columns. We'll select this parameter so that the user sees an icon in each column header to know it can be sorted. and change this so the table will be sorted by the data in the first column. I could also have typed the column name instead of the column number. Like in our first example, we have to define the data types of each column so it knows what can be totaled. The first column is a string, so that's an S. Quantity is a simple number, so that's an I for integer. So far, our string looks like this. The last two columns we want to show with a $sign, thousand separator, and 2 decimal positions, so we'll use a column type indicator somewhat similar to what we used in the first example, except that it says to display the decimal positions. So far, we've just talked about totaling columns, but with this parameter we can also average columns, or put explicit text into a column of the total row. Input the text or function for each column, with each separated by a comma. Let's put the word total in the leftmost column. Now let's add some CSS to the row styles parameter and the column styles parameter to set the background color, font, and alignment, and to change the color of the border between all cells to white. This isn't quite complete. We also need to change some table properties. By default, the class used for tables is the one that all of Confluence uses, which is why all Confluence tables look alike. However, you can override this to a different class name in this parameter, which makes your table take on an entirely different appearance. The last thing we want to do is change the table background color and collapse the borders using the table style parameter. This video has shown just a bit of what the Table Plus macro can do. With over 700,000 downloads and 35 of the most popular products on the Atlassian marketplace, Appfire's award-winning Bob Swift brand of add-ons has helped more than 8,000 customers across 80 countries to creatively enhance their Atlassian tools. Start a free trial of the Advanced Tables for Confluence add-on. And be sure to take a look at our recipes for inspiration about other things you can do with this and other Bob Swift add-ons.